Okay, ready to dive in. We've got some fresh AI research right from those OpenAI
Are you
labs.
exciting?
They just put out, I get this, a paper A&D, a blog post, all about AI image generation,
Oh, nice.
but faster. And they say without losing quality, so making those amazing AI images, but with way less processing power.
Yeah, that's been kind of the holy grail, hasn't it?
Absolutely. And this deep dive, we're going straight to the source, that new research paper, plus the blog post,
Got to get the full picture.
technical details, big picture, all of it. And the method they're using is called sCM.
SCM, all right.
Stands for take a deep breath, simple, stable, and scalable continuous time consistency models.
Quite a mouthful.
But the results, this is the kicker, they're saying it's comparable to the top diffusion models, but using way fewer steps.
Wow. So instead of like hundreds of steps to generate an image,
They're doing it in like 2 steps.
that's a huge speed boost.
Huge, huge. All right, so diffusion models, everyone's talking about them. They're changing the game.
Yeah, they're amazing for creating realistic images.
But got to be honest, they can be slow.
It's that step-by-step process, right?
Yeah, like it's how they work, gradually removing noise from an image
Yeah,
to generate something new. But that takes a lot of steps.
a lot of computation.
So that's where this sCM comes in.
Trying to do it differently.
Totally different approach, right?
Hmm.
Instead of slowly chipping away at the noise,
It's going for a more direct-to-conversion,
boom, noise to clean image. Ideally in just 1 or 2 steps.
especially for those big high-res images.
Game changer, potentially.
Really could be.
Okay, so how did they get this speed? The paper gets into the math, mentions something called TrigFlow.
Ah, yes. TrigFlow. It's not a dance move.
Had to ask.
I know it sounds like it, but no, this is the core of their innovation, a new mathematical framework.
And frameworks.
It simplifies the whole process of building and training these, very complex AI models.
Oh, it's not just about speed, but also about making the training process more efficient and stable.
Exactly. Particularly for those continuous time models like sCM, they've really addressed some of the big issues.
Like what kind of issues?
Well, for one, those pesky instability issues that have popped up with continuous time models in the past.
Right, those could be a real headache.
For sure. So they made a really smart switch. Instead of using complex foray embeddings, they went with simpler positional embeddings.
Ah, so a different way to represent the data.
Exactly. It's almost like giving the model a better sense of timing, a better internal clock.
Oh, I like that. Keeps everything running smoothly.
Exactly. And that's not all. They also introduced something called adaptive double normalization.
Okay, that sounds intense. Break that down for me.
Imagine you have this huge flow of information within the model.
Right, lots of data flying around.
And this adaptive double normalization, it basically acts as a regulator, prevents the model from getting overloaded during training.
So like a traffic control system.
A perfect analogy, keeps everything flowing smoothly, no bottlenecks.
Love it. What else?
They also fine-tuned the training objectives, added tangent normalization, and adaptive weighting to the mix.
Hold on, those are new terms. Tangent normalization, what's that all about?
It's like imagine you're teaching someone to drive.
Yeah.
Tangent normalization is like those gentle steering corrections you make to keep the car on track.
Smooths out the learning curve.
Exactly. It prevents any sudden swerves in the model's output during training.
Got it. So what about adaptive weighting?
Think of it like this. When you study a textbook, you highlight the important stuff, right?
Makes sense.
Well, adaptive weighting does something similar for the model.
So instead of treating all the data points equally,
It learns to prioritize the ones that are most important for, making those high-quality images.
smart, very smart. So basically they've found ways to make the training process more efficient, stable, and to help the model learn more effectively.
Absolutely. They've ticked all the boxes.
But here's where things get really interesting. In the blog post, they talk about how sCM actually learns from a pre-trained diffusion model.
That's right. It's a bit like an apprentice learning from a master.
The student and the teacher.
And the really fascinating part is, as both the student, the sCM model, and the teacher, the diffusion model, get more advanced, the gap in their performance actually shrinks.
So not only is sCM fast, but it's also catching up in terms of quality.
Potentially, yeah. This student might surpass the master one day.
That's incredible. So let's talk results. How did sCM perform in their tests?
Well, they tested on a bunch of different data sets, SICR10, ImageNet, you name it, and with image resolutions up to 5.2 by 512.
Pretty standard stuff.
Yeah, and what they found is that their two-step sCM model, it actually achieved comparable quality to the leading diffusion models out there.
So producing images that are almost as good, but in a fraction of the time.
Yes, exactly. And when they looked at the FID scores, which is, a common way to measure image quality,
Yeah, familiar with those.
there was less than a 10% difference.
That's impressive.
Really is. And to give you an idea of the speed, their largest sCM model, the one with 1.5 billion parameters,
Wow, that's a lot of parameters.
it can generate a single image in just 0.11 seconds.
On a single A100 GPU, that's crazy fast.
Lightning fast, yeah.
But, got to be realistic. No method is perfect, right?
Yeah.
What were some of the limitations the researchers pointed out?
Well, even their best sCM models, they still rely on a pre-trained diffusion model to get going.
So it's still a bit of dependence there.
Yeah, like the apprentice still needs some initial guidance from the master.
Makes sense. Anything else?
There's also, a slight gap in quality compared to those teacher models, though as we said, that gap is shrinking as the models get bigger.
Right, so there's hope.
There is, and FID scores are useful, but they don't capture everything about how we humans see an image.
True. Sometimes those subtle details can make a big difference.
Absolutely. And they also did a comparison with another method, something called variational score distillation, or VSD.
VSD.
And what they found is that sCM actually produced more diverse images, especially when they used guidance, which is a technique for, controlling the image generation process.
So like giving the model some direction.
Exactly. And VSD, it seemed to struggle a bit with that diversity, especially at higher levels of guidance.
Interesting. So it sounds like sCM is not only fast, but also more creative in a sense.
It seems that way, particularly when you need that fine-grained control over what you're generating.
This is all really fascinating stuff. I mean, we've gone from the problem of slow image generation to the nitty-gritty of sCM.
Quite a journey.
But I'm sure some of our listeners are thinking, okay, cool, but so what? Why should I care about this?
That's a fair question, and the answer is this could really change the game for AI image generation, making it much faster, more practical for all sorts of real-world applications.
We're talking real-time image generation here, people.
Exactly. Imagine generating high-quality images on your phone in seconds.
Creating 3D models from just simple sketches almost instantly.
Or even making entire animated movies on a standard computer. The possibilities are mind-blowing.
Seriously. And while it's early days, this sCM, it's a big step forward.
It opens up a ton of possibilities for the future of generative AI.
Absolutely. Can't wait to see what they do next.
Me neither. They're really pushing the boundaries here.
Now, we mentioned that this research came with both a paper and a blog post. And I think that's really interesting. Why do you think they did that?
I think it shows they're really trying to make this research accessible, not just for the experts.
Where the blog post is great for anyone who wants to understand the basics, even if you don't have a deep technical background.
It's a great introduction. And then if you want to dive into the nitty-gritty, the paper's got all the details.
Best of both worlds.
Exactly. And I think it's important because it helps to, demystify AI a bit.
Make it less intimidating.
Exactly. And that's crucial for driving innovation forward.
Agreed. Very smart move. Now, you mentioned earlier that sCM scales alongside diffusion models. Can you unpack that a bit more? What are the implications of that?
Yeah, so what they found is that let's say the relative difference in quality between sCM and the teacher diffusion model, it kind of stays pretty consistent, even as both models become bigger and more powerful.
So it's like they're both getting better at the same rate?
Exactly. They're in a race, but the distance between them stays roughly the same.
Interesting. So does that mean that the actual quality difference is decreasing as the models get bigger?
You got it. The bigger the diffusion models get, the closer sCM gets in terms of quality.
That's promising. So we can expect sCM to keep up with those quality improvements while still being much faster.
That's the hope.
Awesome. Okay, last question for this part of our deep dive. Anything that really stood out to you in this research? Anything that surprised you?
Honestly, I was really impressed by how elegant that TrigFlow framework is. It really simplifies the way we think about these models.
Almost like a new set of tools.
Exactly, and sometimes those simpler, more intuitive tools, they lead to the most creative solutions.
This whole thing has me thinking, if sCM can do this for images, what other types of data could it be applied to? Right, the blog post actually mentions that. They're speculating about using it for audio or even video data.
Ooh, that's next level.
Imagine generating high-fidelity music or realistic video footage in real time. That would be incredible.
Yeah, it's a tantalizing thought, and I bet a lot of researchers are going to be jumping on that.
The possibilities are endless. All right. Back down to earth for a second. The research did highlight some limitations, right?
Right, it's good to acknowledge those, even the most advanced sCM models, they still need those pre-trained diffusion models to get started.
So still some reliance there.
For now, yeah, but who knows what the future holds.
What about that quality gap? You said it was shrinking, but will it ever completely disappear?
That's the million-dollar question. It's tough to say for sure. But as models keep getting bigger and as training techniques get more sophisticated, it's possible that gap could become really tiny.
So maybe one day sCM could actually match or even beat diffusion models in terms of quality while still being super fast.
It's a really exciting prospect.
Okay, last thing for this part. The researchers compared sCM to another method called VSD, and that comparison yielded some interesting insights.
Yeah, one of the big takeaways was that sCM tends to produce more diverse images, especially when you're using guidance to, steer the generation process.
So not just faster, but more creative, especially when you want to have that fine-grained control.
Precisely. And VSD seemed to have a bit more trouble with that, especially at higher levels of guidance, often producing images that were too similar.
So sCM might be the way to go for tasks where you really need that creative variety.
It seems that way.
This has been an incredible deep dive. So far, we've learned so much about sCM and AI image generation.
It's a fascinating field, and it's moving so quickly.
We still got plenty more to explore, though, including those ethical implications and the long-term impact of this technology.
Absolutely. Can't forget about those.
We'll be back with part 2 after a short break.
Looking forward to it. Back again, picking up where we left off, all this talk about sCM and how it could change how we make images, even other kinds of data.
Right, and it's all super exciting, but with any powerful tech, got to think about the ethics, right?
For sure. Always got to look at the bigger picture.
So with sCM, with this ability to make such high-quality images so easily, so quickly, could that be misused?
Absolutely. That's a real concern.
It's something we have to be aware of.
As AI image generation gets better and easier to use, we have to think about things like, deepfakes.
Yeah, those are scary.
They could be used to spread false information or to manipulate people.
And it's only going to get harder to tell the difference between real and fake.
Yeah, that's the challenge. As the technology gets more sophisticated, that line blurs.
So we need to start thinking about safeguards, some kind of ethical guidelines, before it's too late.
Absolutely. It's crucial that we start thinking about that now.
It feels like we're at a real turning point. AI could change so much about our lives,
It really could.
but we have to make sure we're using it responsibly.
It's a balancing act, embracing the innovation while making sure it benefits humanity.
Totally agree. Okay, time for some future gazing. What are some of the long-term implications of all this?
Well, no one can predict the future perfectly,
Sure.
but we can speculate a bit. One thing that's really interesting is, what if this leads to a kind of democratization of content creation?
Meaning anyone could create high-quality stuff.
Exactly. What if anyone could make amazing images, videos, even 3D experiences just with a few clicks or even voice commands?
That would be a huge shift.
Huge. It could change industries like advertising, entertainment, even education and scientific research.
Imagine researchers visualizing complex data in amazing detail, or teachers creating immersive worlds for their students.
The possibilities are really endless.
It's mind-blowing. But of course, with any big change, there will be bumps in the road.
Definitely some unintended consequences.
Well, one concern that comes up a lot is job displacement, especially in creative fields.
Right. If AI can do some of those tasks, what happens to the people who do them now?
It's something we have to think about.
We need to find ways to help people adapt, retrain, maybe even find new roles where they can collaborate with AI.
It's not about replacing humans. It's about finding ways to work together.
Exactly. Using AI to augment human creativity, not to eliminate it.
Okay, back to OpenAI and their research.
Yeah.
What are they saying about next steps for sCM?
They haven't given away all their secrets yet,
Of course.
but they've hinted at some exciting directions. They seem really interested in making sCM even faster, even better quality.
Makes sense. Always room for improvement.
And they're also looking at expanding its capabilities, going beyond just static images.
So animations, videos, maybe even those interactive 3D experiences we were talking about.
Exactly. It's all on the table, and they want to make it more robust, more reliable, so it can be used in real-world applications.
Well, I can't wait to see what they come up with. This research is really thought-provoking.
It is. The field is moving so fast. It's incredible.
Speaking of which, earlier we were talking about sCM being used for other types of data, like audio and video. Any thoughts on specific applications in those areas?
Yeah, for audio, imagine being able to generate music, high-quality music, or even realistic sound effects, all in real time.
That would be revolutionary for musicians, game developers, all sorts of people.
Imagine the soundtracks, the immersive soundscapes you could create.
And for video,
Well, that's a whole other world of possibilities. Imagine generating footage for movies or TV shows without needing huge sets or expensive equipment.
that would change everything.
Or personalized educational videos tailored to each student.
AI-generated video could even revolutionize visual effects and animation.
It's really mind-blowing.
It sounds like we're on the verge of a whole new era of content creation powered by AI.
It's an exciting time to be alive.
But exciting and maybe a little scary, right?
Hmm.
We have to remember to use this technology responsibly.
Couldn't agree more. We have to think about the risks, things like deepfakes and misinformation, and find ways to mitigate those risks.
It's a responsibility we all share.
But if we can do it right, if we can harness the power of AI for good, it could unlock so much creativity, so much innovation.
I love that positive outlook. Now, before we move on, I want to circle back to something you said earlier about researchers making their work more accessible. Why is that so important, especially in a field as complex as AI?
It's important for a few reasons. First, it helps to demystify AI, make it less intimidating for people who aren't, tech experts.
Right, make it understandable for everyone.
Exactly, and that encourages more people to engage with the technology, to explore its potential.
And the more people involved, the better. Right.
Absolutely, and it also helps to create a more informed public conversation about AI. If people understand how it works, they can participate in those discussions in a more meaningful way.
AI isn't just a tech issue, it's a societal issue. Everyone needs to be part of the conversation.
Exactly. And finally, making AI research more accessible can inspire the next generation of innovators, the young people who will shape the future of this field.
If they see the possibilities, they'll be more likely to pursue careers in AI to push the boundaries even further.
That's what we need. Fresh minds, new perspectives.
Absolutely. AI has the potential to benefit all of humanity, but only if we approach it in a collaborative, inclusive way.
Couldn't agree more. It's about working together to create something amazing.
Now, before we wrap up this part, there's one more thing I want to touch on. You mentioned earlier that sCM has this characteristic called consistency. Can you tell us more about that?
Sure. So basically, it means that even when you generate multiple images from the same starting point, the same noise,
Right.
the images you get, they tend to have this remarkable level of visual coherence. They're consistent with each other.
So even though there's randomness in the process, the images still look like they belong together.
Exactly, and that opens up some interesting possibilities. For example, you could use it to generate variations of a single image, maybe with slightly different lighting or composition.
So like different versions of the same scene.
Exactly, and that could be really useful for things like concept art or for designing product variations.
It's like having this extra level of creative control that we didn't have before.
I think that's a really key point. sCM is giving us new tools, new ways to express our creativity.
It's amazing to see how quickly this field is advancing. I'm constantly learning new things.
Me too. It's an exciting time to be involved in AI.
Well, I think we've covered a lot of ground in this second part of our deep dive. We've talked about the potential applications of sCM, the ethical considerations, the long-term implications. It's been a really stimulating conversation.
I've enjoyed it. It's great to have these kinds of discussions to really explore the nuances of this technology.
In the final part, we'll wrap things up by looking at the big picture, how sCM and AI image generation might shape the future of creativity and innovation.
I'm looking forward to it.
Back for the final part of our sCM deep dive. And I think it's time to zoom out, look at the big picture, beyond the tech specs and all that.
Yeah, definitely. Where does this all lead?
Exactly. Like, what does this research tell us about, say, the future of creativity?
That's the question, isn't it?
Could tools like sCM actually change how we approach creative tasks?
I mean, think about it. Access to these powerful AI tools. Could it change our process entirely?
Lead to whole new forms of art, things we haven't even thought of yet.
That's the exciting part. We just don't know. But it's definitely possible.
Will AI become more like a partner in the creative process, pushing us further?
Instead of just a tool, it could be a collaborator.
It's exciting, but also a bit, daunting.
Yeah, again.
Like if AI can make high-quality images so fast, what happens to artists, designers?
People worry about their skills becoming obsolete, right?
Right, exactly.
But I don't think it's about replacement. It's more about, augmentation.
AI is a tool to enhance what humans can do.
Artists, designers, they can use these tools to make their work even better, explore ideas faster, push those creative boundaries.
So not a threat, but a new tool in the toolbox.
Exactly, a powerful one. And think about it, just like photography didn't replace painting, this could lead to new forms of art.
Oh, I like that. A new way to express ourselves creatively.
And redefine what creativity even means.
So wider lens now, how could this impact society as a whole?
Big question. Well, one thing's for sure, we'll see a lot more visual content. Images, videos, way easier and cheaper to make.
Flooding the world with visuals.
And that could affect everything. Advertising, entertainment, even how we learn and do research.
Imagine anyone can create stunning visuals for anything they do.
Blog posts, presentations, social media, everything.
Democratizing content creation, everyone gets a visual voice.
Exactly. But I gotta remember, more access also means more responsibility.
Right, the potential for misuse is there.
Deepfakes, misinformation, we have to be very careful.
So guidelines, safeguards, that's crucial.
We need to figure out how to use this technology ethically for the good of everyone.
Couldn't agree more. So,
Yeah.
big picture takeaway.
sCM, it's a huge step forward for AI image generation, shows how far we've come.
And hints at a future where AI plays a big role in our lives.
Absolutely. But it's up to us to use it wisely, responsibly.
To shape that future, well, this has been a fascinating deep dive. Learned a lot about sCM, AI image generation, all the possibilities and challenges.
Yeah, a lot to unpack.
Thanks for joining us.
It's been a pleasure.
And to everyone listening, keep those minds curious. See you on the next deep dive.